Hello sailors, this is the Dodgy Kebab and you are watching a review of the private World of Warcraft 4.3.4 realm Hades. Now why didn't I review this realm when it launched back in November instead? Well, I'm not really a fan of Cataclysm, so I've procrastinated my way into making other types of Warcraft related content instead. But I do think this is a worthwhile realm to cover, and the private server community is crying out for new quality content right now. I mean, I have an almost monopoly on private server content. Some guys have decided to dial everything back a bit, some guys are just going to focus on Warcraft Classic, and some guys have found new audience with the retail game. It's a shame to watch people go, but that's life. Plus, better the way they've chosen than to have a full-on mental breakdown.
The classic WoW community, and the World of Warcraft community in general, is absolute shit. And you're all two-faced pieces of shit, human trash. And that is why you don't deserve a content creator like me.
Anyway, let's go on and talk about Hades. Hades is a project under the Twinstar umbrella of realms. Other realms from Twinstar include Kronos, the famous vanilla project. Hades is a ×1 rate realm for everything. Hades was released in November 2017. Hades has just entered patch 4.1, with patch 4.2 due to hit June the 28th. The final patch, 4.3, is due to hit November the 29th, a full year after the server launch. Hades is funded by mounts and vanity items only being sold in their web store. Since Cataclysm and onwards, the game can be installed from a single file that is smaller than the brain size of your average Xbox One fan. So, I downloaded the 26 meg file and unpacked it. Want to see how quickly you can begin your adventure? So for anyone rolling on a ×1 rate server, the quality of the levelling is important. If you only cared about endgame, chances are you'd be on some other high rate realm instead. Cataclysm realms are notorious for bugs, and very few have done a decent job of emulating this expansion. So let's begin once more at North Sheer Valley and the return of Clicker Tank. This is normally the point I rant about poor scripting and yellow mobs aggroing off each other. Not here on Hades. They have correctly got the mobs in this area to function correctly. The next opening quest is to heal the fallen soldiers, and Hades doesn't just have it working, they have it spot on. The animation's all in place and the spoken dialogue is activated correctly too. But what about the fires in the Vineyard quest? Will we see firestorm style markers instead of flames? Hades does it right too. The fires are in place and work as they should, so it's a full house in terms of scripting in the human starting zone. I'll come back to Clicker Tank soon, but this is Cataclysm, and you might want to choose to play as a werewolf instead.
I think you'll find they are called Worgen.
I think you'll find it's just Teen Wolf from the 80s. Anyway, being a Cataclysm server, it's worth trying this starting zone out as well, so I created a character called Wolf Team.
Game creative staff. Wolf Team.
We begin with the story unfolding correctly, dialogue happening as it should, and gameplay elements being deployed in the right way. As you start a quest, NPCs will be where they should, and the actions, be it fighting, standing, talking, are all as you'd expect. As I begin knocking on doors, I get an invite to join the guild Method, and I'll have you know that this is definitely the real Method guild and not just some prick with zero imagination. Oh no. Anyway, so as I progressed on, the quest kept working and it was all very impressive. I got as far as the one where you get the dog that follows you, and then Let's go back to Clicker Tank now, and in Goldshire, the multiple profession trainer works a charm. Also, the trainer's recipes are in the correct order, which is a revelation for a server of this type. I made sure fishing works, and then I met a fan. I ran into Stormwind to see how busy it was. Now this is during launch, so yeah, it's really busy. However, compare this to a typical Friday evening now, and you'll see that they've seen their fair share of drop off. Anyway, back to where we were with Clicker Tank. I bumped into everyone's favourite mage, Raid Ghost. He gave me some gold, and then I went off to go and quest in the Fargo Deep Mines. Well, actually, I wanted to quest in the forest, but the game had other ideas. But that was in November. It's May now. This will be fixed now, right? A shame really, because the mob pathing is really good. They'll come and get you in the correct fashion when you go out of sight. I travelled to Stormwind and began on my fishing and cooking dailies. Not only did they work, but a common bug on a lot of post-Wrath of the Lich King servers is that rewards don't scale to your level correctly. Well, on Hades, they do scale correctly. That's good. What's also good is the scripting in place for the Hogger. I was doing the quest to kill him, and this is Cataclysm. So the concept of an elite mob being a group target is as non-existent as my enthusiasm to do PvP. This means I soloed his ass. Anyway, the point is once I beat him, Marcus Johnson and his gang appear at the end, and all the RP script is brilliant here. Moving on to Westfall, and the amount of scripted quests around starts increasing, but Hades doesn't put a foot wrong in this department. All the quests around the murder scene work great, although the quest where you hide in the box at the end of the Janglobe mine wouldn't start while someone else was doing it. This could actually be how it's meant to work. I just don't remember coming across this before. The quest did work for me when I was the only person in the area though. I've said the quests are brilliant, although there are some areas like what you can see on screen now that do lack the same amount of polish.
Well, this is the first Twinstar server to have a lack of polish.
But really, there is a lot of polish here. NPCs walk around correctly, pushing carts around. I've seen these elements in a total mess on other servers. Triggers and phasing for elements like the thugs are all handled correctly. These are the sort of things that make you feel like you're playing a quality product and not just some shitbag cash grab. The last big scripted quest I did in Westfall before moving on was the Golem quest, which is, to no one's surprise, worked flawlessly. Did a bit in Redridge and Duskwood, but let's look at STV instead. So I began questing in STV, and once again everything worked great. Hatching the lash tail worked, so did the quest prompt system. There's really not much more to say here other than every quest I tried worked. After almost 160 quests to reach level 30, I decided to ask a staff member for a test account. What I got wasn't quite what I expected. I spoke to the staff and they said they didn't want to generate a level 85 character for me to check the endgame, but would rather put some website currency on my account and let me buy a character that another player was selling on their web store. With the amount of stars I had and what was available, the best I could get was a level 81 human warrior, who I quickly renamed to Spunky Pants. This method is a double-edged sword. As I've said in the past, I respect not wanting to let any spawned characters onto your realm. I get it, I do understand, but I don't have infinite time and patience I can set aside for any realm. There comes a point when I need to wrap a review up so I can work on other projects. This fact is further aggravated because I don't really enjoy Cataclysm, and I'm highly likely to wrap up a review if I get bored. The final issue is that as the population plateaus, the amount of people running through the level up and gearing up content starts to dry up, so progress through to raiding becomes a lot slower. And so we come back to my first issue, which is how much time I can really spend on reviewing the server. So this is Spunky Pants, and after I had him tuned to my playstyle, I set him for a test drive in the Outlands to get him warmed up. I did dungeons while I was here, but that's later on in the video. Once I had finished a little bit of TBC content, I went off to Hyjal to pick up the quest that whoever was playing this character before had got up to. This happened to be the quest Smashing Through Ashes, which involves killing some of these dudes, but I noticed that some some of the guys were moving around a bit weird, like they couldn't decide if they wanted to stay within or out the map. I wondered what would happen if I charged one of these indecisive mobs. The answer was somewhat disappointing. Moving on from here, and I had a bash at the hatchery. This area is designed to be a homage to the 80s classic arcade game Joust. Here on Hades it works fine, and I progressed through each of the different phases to earn the achievement. After I found myself saving the eggs at the bottom of the lake, and not long after that I watched as the RP script rolled out correctly. This zone has a huge phasing part called the regrowth, which means after a certain line of quests you'll see graphical changes like trees and grassland appear where there was none before. I then remembered that now I had a fly mount it would be a lot easier to try out archaeology, so I went over to Harrison Jones, learnt the skill, headed out into the field to have a go. And it's good news for all you amateur treasure hunters out there, because this skill works perfectly. And now this. Hello sailors, Dodgy Kebab here to tell you about my new guidebook, The Warcraft Advice Tome. I'll show you how to click like a champion, backpedal like a winner, and what to do if you meet a level 17 hunter. Buy the book now! PvP not included. After watching the story scripting for the Maelstrom, you end up in Deepholm. So this is the next area I began questing in. Everything was going fine. Quests were working just like they had been throughout my play. And then unbelievably, I found one that didn't work. When you go aboard the wreckage of Storm's Fury, you're supposed to be able to collect the captain's log. But here on Hades, it's bugged, which is a pain in the arse for trying to continue that quest chain. I don't really enjoy this zone anyway, so I took this as a sign to try elsewhere. So I did Oldham. I went to the far side of Tanaris and met with the NPC group to lead me into the zone. The scripting for this whole section was perfect, not one complaint at all. I could go on about the quests in this zone all working as I expected, but I think you get the idea now. One thing I will say is that yes, pandas were an awful race for the game, but playing through this zone just reminded me of these ridiculous Egyptian cat people that are here. They just do not belong in Warcraft at all. These guys make pandas look like fucking Kel'Thas. First of all, the server is always putting out arena messages, so that's useful I guess. As far as PvP goes, I did a match, sure it worked, I got the Grim Reaper achievement on my first attempt, however, PvP is still for wankers.
Strong stuff, but he's right.
Right off the bat, the RDF tool works quite well. It will match you up with people and let you begin a dungeon with ease. However, I found that many times it would glitch out during a dungeon if a party member left. No matter how nicely you asked it, it would not look for someone to fill that empty space. So if you have to kick a noob or someone leaves because you got Abyssal Halls for the 23rd time, you could be in trouble. As for the dungeons, many are very impressive. I started off with the Wailing Caverns with all the elements working fine. We were able to start the event to summon the final boss. All went off without a hitch. You were even awarded the RDF goodie bag at the end. The stockades were fine, even though the first one was ruined by a healer that refused to heal any party member. Ragefire Chasm was perfect too, as was the Dead Mines. This being Cataclysm means it's a bit different than the pre-shattered version, complete with easy mode vendor NPC near the final boss. Talking about the final boss, that also went off perfectly. Started a Shadowfang Cape run, which was fine, although was cut short by the realm crashing. I had another attempt later, and everything was fine. The last vanilla content dungeon I tried was the Scarlet Monastery. Surprise, surprise, that was perfect too. However, when I got my level 81 character, the first dungeons I tried were TBC ones, and here I found some issues. I played Hellfire Ramparts all the way to Omor the Unscarred, but he managed to give me a knockback so large it actually threw me out the dungeon. Watch. Now how the fuck does that work? Moving on to the Blood Furnace, most of the dungeon worked correctly with just two issues. The first one is very minor, and that there was no prisoners in the Maker's Room. That doesn't actually do anything, but they should be there. The second and slightly worse bug is that Bogrock won't enter the room when you hit the switch and then kill the prisoners off. Again, not a huge bug, but it's not right. Now onto the Cataclysm dungeons, and BRC works a charm. Every boss perfect, no issues. Then we have the Abyssal Halls, and again it all works perfectly. The RP cutscenes, the mechanics, the bosses, it's blizz perfect. Next up, Vortex Pinnacle. All the bosses was fine. We beat Assad at the end of the dungeon. The Stone Court was next. It was very impressive. This dungeon has a lot of scripted sections and bosses with particular mechanics, all of which have been emulated flawlessly here on Hades. The last one I'm going to touch on is Grim Battle, and right away the pre-nerf nature of this dungeon slaps you. The seer mobs must be crowd controlled until you get them on their own, as they will likely kill a tank in 2 shots. A fun dungeon that's been replicated really well, even if an unprepared group will probably be wiped out a lot. Well, I did a TBC Hydral Summit raid and that will work correctly, but I threw in the towel on this realm before I was ready to hit endgame raiding. This is due to not getting a proper test account. I just couldn't stand playing the content. I don't enjoy it anymore. But I'd say there's a very high chance of the raiding being great quality here. The Hades team has shown throughout their questing and dungeons that they are more than capable, so to not have this carry on over into raiding, well, that doesn't seem likely that the same quality wouldn't be here. So, Hades have shown their great talent at scripting the game, so you'd expect their anti-cheat to also be of very high quality. Well, no. Hades have made a huge oversight here, and their cheat protection systems are utter garbage. I went in for 3 long rounds of cheating in the name of science, and here's how I got on. Round 1. So I created a new account under a new email and had my VPN fired up. I was able to do anything I wanted. Speed running, flying, no clip, teleporting. The anti-cheat picked up nothing. So after quite a while of pretending to be Sonic the Hedgehog, I decided to push teleport cheating to its natural limit. I teleported to Booty Bay, caught a boat. Once on the other side, I teleported right away to GM Island. I ran around for a bit and then made my guild aware where I was. Not long after sharing this information with Method, remember, definitely the real Method, a GM showed to ban my account. I had a suspicion that I may have been grassed up by my guild rather than actually detected by the anti-cheat software. So I went in for a second round on my normal account, which I used to do the review. I began to cheat again, but this time I'd show people just how much I can exploit the game using cheats like this. So I went to Karazhan to show what I mean. So I'm flying around without a care in the world, but if I'd been a ranged class, I could attack mobs without fear of them actually being able to hit me at all. Now, what do you think would happen if you had groups doing this? 25 mages that can't be touched? You could take the utter piss out of this realm that is totally unprotected. I ran around for ages and no ban happened. The final round of cheating was because I got a tip off that maybe the system might pick up my hacking if I was on a character I'd used for some time already. This, however, is not the case. I used Clicker Tank to teleport all around the map for fun. I left the game AFK for an hour. Came back, still nothing had happened to me. In the end, I started telling people in my guild that the anti-cheat was utter trash and they could watch as I teleported from one end of the map to the other. Once I did that, within seconds, a guild member did grass me up and I was banned. I spoke to a GM and they said yes, I was only caught because a guild member contacted a GM. So Hades have really let themselves down here. The cheat protection is non-existent, and if I didn't tell people what I was doing, chances are I'd have never been caught. I conducted a staff interview via email. This is what was said.
That ability
isn't ready yet. I need a target.
Hades is a very well scripted realm. The questing, dungeons, mechanics all work brilliantly, with the exception of how mobs and players interact with the maps. The warrior's charge can send you through the floor, and some mobs glitch out on floor related movement. So much works here that this is almost a top tier realm, but the anti-cheat is so poor and the scope for people to cheat is so large that it creates a problem for me. It can make PvE ridiculously easy, but far more of a problem is the effect on PvP it could have. Is it a swiftness potion, or is it speed hacking? Flag carriers could just fly across a battleground. Effectively, PvP is ruined. With a decent anti-cheat in place, this would be a brilliant realm, but as it stands, it's decent enough just for its scripting, but the total lack of anti-cheat ruins it for me. If they get that fixed, then I highly recommend it. If they don't, then only play here with some honest friends, otherwise give it a miss. At that.